Welcome to Let's Talk on Houston City Beat. I'm Lisbeth Newton, and joining us today is my friend Jenn Marie Cook. Jenn Marie, how are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisbeth, for having me on today.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. I'm really excited to hear about your story and get the opportunities to share with other people what you do now and what got you to that point, because I believe that our past experiences really help us shape who we are today and who we're going to help and who we become tomorrow, right? So currently you're with, you have a company called Elemental Enterprises, and you're also with Living Holistic. Tell us about those two companies and what they do, who they help.
Absolutely. So Elemental Enterprises, I have three pillars underneath that company. We have Elemental Mind Academy, where I certify coaches, facilitators, and practitioners in what I utilize in my practice, or one of the tools. And then as a standalone practitioner, I specialize in ISP, integrated subconscious programming, which is an alternative to therapy. I take ISP and I utilize that with companies. So I'll go in with HR, with business owners, franchise owners, and work on sales training, mindset training to overall raise profits, closing margins, things like that. And then with Elemental Mind Academy, we certify practitioners in ISP as well. And then over at Living Holistic, I bring the business side of mentorship, and we offer business coaching over there and masterminds for all the members and the co-work rental offices.
Oh, okay, so Living Holistic is like a co-sharing space,
It's
a
a
co-working
co-working.
space.
It's a co-working space, and then networking. And there's different pillars under the company, but it's a membership type based community.
Okay, and y'all are out in the woodlands, right?
Off of Sawdust,
Okay.
north of Sawdust. Mhm.
All right, awesome. So, how did you get to? I know that right now you're working with, as you said, ISP, Integrative Subconscious Programming. You're
Mhm.
helping people break barriers to greater achievement, more sales, which means more money, which means more abundance. How did you get to that point? What made you decide to get into that line of work?
So actually, several years ago, 2025. So in 2020, when the world was falling apart, I say all the pieces to my life fell together. In 2019, I had sold a brick and mortar business of mine. I owned a swim school, or in 2018. And then 2019, I became very, very ill. I was bedridden. I was dependent on medication. I would sleep for days. I was on a liquid diet with home health services. I had three small children, and I was like, this is not how we're meant to live life. I wanted to see them play, grow up, go to their school functions, trick or treat, do all the things, go play with them in the snow. And I was in bed. And so scrolling through Facebook, and I had been working with a couple shiny business coaches at the time to automate my online other business that I had. And Facebook popped up an ad for a company that did subconscious reprogramming. I listened. I bought this 7-minute meditation for $7. I listened and I was like, oh, I feel different. Well, they had great funnels built into their system. So then I hopped on.
Retargeting.
Yeah, they did. Meta was listening
Yeah.
in on all my conversations. And then this company had great funnel system. And so I got into one of their group coaching calls. And on this group call, I'm like, man, I really do feel physically different. What did this person just do? And I got on a private coaching call with her. And 30 minutes later, I'm like, I have to learn this. Like, what do I do? And within 6 weeks, Lisbeth, I was off over 25 pills a day. I started kickboxing class. I was driving a car again. And I mean, the next year I had another baby. It completely changed my life from being bedridden to being able to really live my life again. And little did I know the journey that I was about to go on in 2022, 2023, and 2024, that these tools would then equip me for even more growth.
Okay, so tell us about what has been your most favorite success story of the clients that you've worked with, and then let's jump into that story from your personal on your personal life.
My personal journey.
Yeah.
So clients, it really depends. I have some that are like, I want more peace. I want to sleep better at night. I'm like, okay, well, let's create some measuring blocks there. On it can't always be sunshine and rainbows. We are given things to grow. And so when I break down for individual one-on-one clients, we look at our body, business, balance, and our being. And so seeing relationships, that's the balance side of my coaching practice, seeing relationships change and marriages really strengthen is one of my favorite things. For my one-on-one clients. For my business clients, it's really seeing franchise structures come together. I've been called like a business therapist. So being able to work with owners and then let the franchise managers work more to see everybody flourish, it's phenomenal.
Okay. Okay. So it's really about empowering the person to be the best version of themselves so they can show up as their best self to others and help them. It's like spreading good vibes, and it's contagious, right?
It is. And I don't know, have you seen the movie Inside Out too?
No, I haven't, but I'm going to put that on my
Okay.
list.
So in Inside Out, they talk about these core memories and these core beliefs. And I was just watching Inside Out 2 with my children this weekend, and they go through and they start strumming them like a guitar. And it's, I am amazing. I am worthy. Things happen good to me and for me. And we all have these core beliefs, whether positive or negative. And so bringing up the positive ones to be really the strength and what we operate from our computer system, um, is what I do.
Okay, that sounds absolutely beautiful. I might have to call you after this. So let's talk about what got you here. There were some things that changed in your life after you went through this aha through the ISP that you were working with to break your subconscious negative patterns that were causing you to get sick. You broke that. And so all of that started fixing in your life, and that part of your life became great. And then something else fell apart. Tell us about that.
Oh, it's actually quite a beautiful story. So my physical body got strong. I had another baby. I got really involved with this company that I learned this method through. So much so I became head of their sales, up in leadership, a managing partner. And then in August of 2022, I was actually offered ownership of the company and I walked away. And over the next year, uh, personally, divorce was discussed, separation was discussed, all of those things in my marriage. Where in October of 2023, I packed suitcases and I left. And, over the past year and a half, it's, it has been going through the fire. You were refined, like as a refiner is refining gold, the gold gets dipped, the impurities get washed away. Gold gets dipped, impurities get washed away. And what I messaged with somebody yesterday, and I was like, how would we trust a plane to fly if it was not tested first? Would we have trusted a surgeon who has not gone to medical school and has not practiced the skills and been through the fire? And so over the past year and a half, I really was tested on, you have these tools, you have this community, and you have more than just ISP. Are you going to put them to use to survive and get through the cards that you have been dealt?
Okay. And so tell us about what was it exactly that fell apart?
So first it was my marriage,
Okay.
and that was a long time coming. I really recognized before I even left my part in the failure of the marriage, and did some deep dive and deep looking into what is self-worth, what is self-confidence, how is a marriage to be set up with the respect and the cherished piece for both the man and the woman. And so I really went into it with that mindset, doing as much action as I could to move forward and continue to grow and heal that relationship. When it had gotten to the point that that was not going to be the case and safety did become an issue, I chose to let it leave. I left my childhood home with suitcases with my 4 children.
Okay.
Oh, mhm.
And how, I know there are some things that you cannot discuss at this point in time. So if I ask you a question that you would prefer not to answer, please tell me, hey, pass on that particular question. Before you went through your transformation, how was your marriage at that point in time when before you went through this self-discovery and you released all these things that were holding you back? How was your marriage at that point?
I mean, it was okay. I look back on even my dating life prior to my marriage and my marriage, and I truly loved my husband for what I knew love to be. And for me, now understanding what it is like to give and receive love, I'm a completely different human. I was very hard. I was very go getter. I was closed off. I was not in that woman essence, or you hear nowadays that femininity of being open and receiving. And um, I did not walk into my marriage with a respect for him as a partner, and that was my fault in setting
Well,
it up that way.
I really, and some people might disagree, and that's fine, but I think that a lot of that is owed to the feminism movement because I don't know if you how far back you can remember those types of ideals were drilled into us as girls, that we had to fit a certain mold that was not the mold that girls used to fit in back in the 50s, back in the 40s. We were given a different story, a different narrative that we had to follow, and I think that could probably attest to a lot of failed marriages. And speaking from experience, right?
Yep.
I could see how in in a marriage there's the feminine and the masculine, and if you have two masculines coming together, it's like it's almost like two magnets that are just going to repel each other, right? So was
Right.
there some of that going on in your marriage at that time?
Oh, absolutely. And if you look at it from even if I was in the more masculine frame going into the marriage, and then at the end, I'm like, oh, I want to receive. I've softened. That is not how the relationship was built. And I do. I call it the toxic feminine movement because I was the boss babe. I built
Mm-hmm.
businesses, I sold them, I went after it, I built sales teams. And that's how I was in my personal life too. And I've really, really learned over the past 3 years that you can show up even in corporate with feminine qualities as a woman, soft. We are here to collaborate. We're here to build community. We're here to nurture. And that is really such a beautiful piece when you can get into corporate and show up that way. It is very, very powerful.
Yeah, yeah. So when was he masculine in the marriage as well, or was he, because you came in as a masculine representation, was he more feminine, or was he more of a masculine man? How did that work out?
So I'm going to take my personal responsibility in this.
Mm-hmm.
I showed up very masculine from the beginning. So I did not allow a lot of room for the direction to be given for the submissive wife to even take place. And so that was how I set up the frame. That is where I truly did not set the marriage up for success. I did not go into it with a respect for my partner either because of just different personal and life decisions from the past and
Mm-hmm.
how the marriage moved forward. And so, with that being said, even if I was asked to not do something or to do something, if I didn't agree with it, there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the respect there for me to make a decision another way.
It wasn't
So,
done. Yeah, yeah. I completely understand, and again, it's back to the narratives that we were given growing up as little girls. That's you can sit there and I mean, obviously you were the one that made those decisions, you were the ones that acted in the way that you did, whatever that came out of, but you were following a narrative that was given to you. So i
well,
just i just want to share that because
you're completely right. Because if you
Mhm.
look at Disney princesses, if you look at different movies on what we watched growing up, yes, some were rescued, but some had to work very hard to get where they are. They had to
Mhm,
be the man. I mean, look at Mulan. She had to be the man to be able to
mhm.
go on. And yeah, so that's why when that I have been asked that question before, I have to take personal responsibility for even the frame I allowed the marriage to
Yeah,
start on. And then by that time I wanted it to be in that healthy relationship, it was flipped it on its head and it wasn't
it was too late
it
because
was
he
it was too
he
late.
was in another mindset. He was
Yes.
in the mindset from the beginning, and he was not able to make a transition and grow as
No.
you were growing into your new self through the transformations you were going through. What do you think that's what just fell apart and he didn't know how to piece himself back together again?
Yep, I think there was a choice of not I mean, he did what he could, and I still
Mhm.
believe he's doing the best that he can every day. I believe everybody is doing the best that they can every day, and everybody's rock bottom looks different,
Yeah, yeah. So
you
talk
know?
to us about, there have been some events that have unfolded in the last
Mhm.
year that has just, I can't imagine any mother having to go through what you have gone through, and for you to be sitting here as strong as you are is really a testament to your faith, to your strength. Tell us about how things changed so dramatically for you as a mom with four children. What happened? How has that affected your children? And how are you moving forward to help them become stronger and overcome? And I just asked you a bunch of questions. Overcome these really difficult challenges that they have been given that they didn't ask for.
When I first started this journey of self-discovery, healing, strengthening my faith, the Bible first and foremost is my book to go to. Another one is The Energy Codes by Dr. Sue Morter. And it really goes into our energetic being. And I may reference it again later. And Elizabeth, if you need to reel me back in, and then
Go
give me a
ahead.
question if you need to.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Um, I'm going to list in no particular order events that have happened in the past, let's just say 18 months. Um, CPS has been involved about 6 or 7 times. There's been 4 psych hospital stays for my children. Um, my son's attempted suicide, 11 years old, 10 at the time. Um, I have filed emergency protective orders for myself and the children. And now there are legal things. There is a case that does involve the safety of one of my children. And so I can't go into further detail about that because it is still active and happening. But with that being said, I got asked last week, how are things getting so much worse than they were a year ago? And I had to sit back and really reflect on that question because I looked at it and I was like, things are so much better than they were a year ago. Things are so much better than it was a year and a half ago. I have a beautiful, completely different life. Um, the difference is the trauma my children have experienced up until August was what it was. August, completely different type of trauma happened. And then an abandonment wound got opened. And being an observer and watching traumas happen in real life and our physical and emotional responses from them has been something I never experienced before, even working with children in the past, because I always get them post trauma, post therapy, and then kind of the last ditch effort. We are in working through our last ditch effort at this point, and being able to recognize the progress, even when it might not look like it. But here's what we have to always remember with anybody that we are ever interacting with: we truly do not know what they are going through.
Mhm.
I hid my situation from Facebook, from social media, from my family, from my friends for so many years. No one knew. Even 6 months ago, most people knew maybe 5%. My inner circle maybe knew 60%. Until in September, I couldn't do it anymore on my own without letting people in. And it's truly been life changing to be able to be vulnerable, ask for help, and not step into that masculine role of trying to solve all the problems myself. And so, again, when we talk about the fire, um, stepping into your next story, beauty from the ashes, I still believe we're in the fire. We're still
Mhm.
working our way through, but to be able to see the tools that God has put in my life to heal my body, 5 years ago, now to see them actually be able to be used with for my children and their progress and for me as well to be able to handle all of this. It's been truly a gift.
How is so a few years back, I had a friend at the time who spoke about her trauma a lot, and somehow another person came into my life that also did the same thing, and she built a business around speaking about trauma.
Okay.
If you talk about it, um, every day you wake up and you talk about the trauma, is it possible to recover if you continue to relive it, or is there some point where you get a release because you let it go, you let the experience go, you let the memories go, or do you have to hold on to it? Is there recovery in letting go much easier than in holding on and continuing to talk about it? What do you think about that?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this in a few different parts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So trauma and our response to trauma is stored in the body, and it's stored in our electric being. Okay. And so our emotions are chemical reactions. So we have our programming, which is how we learn what the number green is,
Mm-hmm.
the picture, the color blue, but we also store programs to protect us. So if I'm sitting here, I'm driving my car, I get in a car accident, and then I sit there, I stare at the Volkswagen, and I'm like, what did I do wrong? How am I going to tell so and so? All those emotions now get stored with those programs that I'm thinking and spitting out in my words. So we have those attachments. What can happen driving the Volkswagen? So you hear people who can't drive anymore after COVID, or they got in a car accident, they can't do this. We get into these programs that are not real, but it's real here. So then it's real in our body. Yes, we can detach our emotional responses from our programming. We're the ones that give the programming the positive or negative experience. Everything is a blank slate. We're the ones that give it the power. Whether it's a positive phrase like I love you, that can actually still be negative for people. So, yes, there is hope and there are ways to do it. Now, talk therapy, if we talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, and we just open up those emotional responses without a resolution, it's deepening those neural pathways of the trauma,
Which
it,
actually makes it worse, right?
which makes it worse because it's
Mhm.
embedding those chemical responses in your body, which is why people fall into depression, anxiety, and can't get out of it. The panic attacks happen. It's because it just keeps bubbling up and keeps building deeper. And so there is actually David Hawkins wrote a book for anybody that wants, like, this is not a quick fix, but if you want to know how to feel and move through without working with therapy alternatives or therapy itself, David Hawkins wrote a book called Letting Go. And Mel Robbins and David Goggins talk about this a lot. They talk about letting things be. So I highly recommend going and looking at The Scale of Consciousness by David Hawkins and reading the book Letting Go, because it teaches you how to move through those emotions on your own and starting to reprogram by letting things be.
Okay. And how are your kids dealing with all of this right now? I know you mentioned that you're still in you're in that last phase. How are you able to get through to them as their mother, or do you find that a challenge? Because I've heard that a surgeon cannot operate on their family because they're too close, right? is that the same type of concept in this situation? Because these are emotional wounds and they're very painful. So can you effectively help them, or do you have to step back and allow someone else to come in that can give them maybe a different perspective?
Um, it is both.
Mhm.
It is both. I am learning in the moments because I've had to really take an honest look, especially over the past 3 months. PTSD is a real thing. And a lot of their triggers and my triggers is really that's in anticipation of an emotional response,
Mhm.
more than it is sometimes an actual activity or an active emotional response. Um, we're really having to recognize what those are for us. And I've had to do a deep reflective look inside. And so I meet with professionals multiple times a week. Um, my girls are also in a crisis stabilization program now, twice a week. But luckily, with Living Holistic, the practitioners that I've trained and worked with, they are getting a lot of help. I have had to remove myself because I am so deep in those core memories and those, I don't want to say wounds, but those past wounds and traumas. It is a lot. It has at first been a lot more helpful to have an outsider come in to work on those things. But what's been really, really neat is now they are coming to me and being like, Mommy, we're ready. I'm ready to do this. Can you pray with me over this? Can we go listen to this song? And I want to learn how to do the breathing that you do. And so they're open to hearing it from me now.
Do you think that um, the five of you, your children and you, will ever come to the point, or have you already come to the point of being able to forgive what has happened, what he did, what he's done?
I think not talking about my children because a child does not ask for any of this.
Yeah.
For me, part of it, yes. I've had to do a lot of self reflection, and Katie Byron wrote a book called Loving What Is. And in that, you reflect back on yourself and your part in it. Just like we were talking about the respect in a marriage and things like that. I mean, I built up that part between us. Um, hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something I tell my children often, especially when they are having a hard time and feeling hurt by somebody or causing pain intentionally or unintentionally, whether it's emotional or physical. Hurt people hurt people. Um, and that leads into the question like, how are we hurting? And for them to be like, well, I'm angry, I'm sad, I don't know. Um, has open conversation. I can't say if my children have gotten to a forgiveness standpoint. But what I do have to say, what's been really cool with children is to see love is unconditional with them and knowing that they still have love for people who have caused them pain. Um, it's a really beautiful thing because they're still open to healthy relationships. And so that has been my wish is healthy relationships, healing for all parties involved because I truly believe children need both parents, both healthy parents. They deserve both healthy parents, and both healthy parents deserve to be in their children's lives.
Do you think
And
you could trust him again? Is that and I don't know all of the legal details behind what has happened, but do you think you could ever get to the point where you trust him around your children and even around yourself? Is that something that could ever happen again, or is that door permanently closed?
no, that door's not permanently closed. And my prayer every day is that he is continuing to heal whatever hurt has caused to get this far. And I have to look in the mirror and do the same to be able to, I mean, we're all human. We all make mistakes. And I just also trust that in God's timing, when and if that door is opened back up for interactions, that everybody's healed. And at least working through the process of healing, knowing how to handle emotions in a responsible, respectful manner.
Yeah. Well, Jenn Marie, thank you so much for sharing your story. And what impresses me the most about what I'm hearing is your heart of forgiveness, because the majority of women, the majority of mothers would just have wanted to tear his eyes out or his ear, just do something horrible in revenge, right? It's that feeling of revenge that sometimes takes over. But what I'm hearing from you is that you have love for him, and you hope that he comes to the point at some point down the road, if not tomorrow even, where he's able to let go of all of this anger. And it's really like almost like evilness that lives within a person because they allow it to, that causes them to go and do something that they shouldn't be doing, as you explained earlier. So I wanted to thank you, and I hope that your story brings encouragement, if anything, shows people that you can forgive, and you're actually helping yourself by forgiving the person that has done you the most wrong, because that person might not even care that you still hold this grudge 20 years down the road. You might die holding this grudge, but to be able to release it helps you more than it helps them. So I wanted to thank you for sharing that. That's very beautiful.
Absolutely. And thank you, Elizabeth. I mean, you're completely right. When we hold on to anger, that person's not holding it. We're hurting ourselves. And so it thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I hope that you come back again and talk about some of the subconscious programming. I love the topic of conversation. I know that for me, my subconscious is my worst enemy. And I'm working on changing that, because we just can't be arguing all the time like we are. So thank you so much, Jenn Marie. I really appreciate it. And I wish you and your children the best. And I'll be praying for you all every night.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.